Mhm. Hello. How you guys doing? Sorry that it took so long. I'm all over the place today, guys, so please bear with me. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday so far. I'm really not sure actually today how much of the book we're going to be doing, because I don't know. It's been an interesting few days, that's for sure, but we'll get through it. All right. But I think today, after the book, I will probably go to Genshin and not Celeste. I really don't think today I can bring up the energy and have the mind to play Celeste. Genshin is always just light-hearted fun. I don't really need to focus too much, so we can definitely do that. Or other things, depending on who wants to do something, I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm being so quiet right now. I'm just going through it. It's okay though. We're here. We're gonna do a little bit of the book. We'll see for how long. Hour or two. And then again, I'll probably gonna be doing Genshin and not Celeste today. Well, and we also just do that. Hello, guys. All right. Like I said, we're probably gonna do a bit less of the book today, not too long, and just Genshin. We have a bunch of stuff still there to do. More summer event stuff, especially like more story. We have an FS story we can do. More exploration, everything. I just don't know and don't think I can do Celeste today, just because of where my mind is. But we got this. I think we're just gonna start here for today. I don't really want to talk too much right now. We got this. All right. Thank you, Abby. All right, guys. We didn't even finish Act 2 last time, so we're gonna wrap up Act 2 today with Part 14 being the final one. And then we're gonna go a little bit into Act 3 and see how that goes. But yeah, so today, Part 14 is called The Princess and the Ogre. We're being 6 years ago again, and the quote for this one is, "The princess is all alone again. To make matters worse, her father promised her hand in marriage to an ogre who had agreed to give her king 50 wagons of silver in return. The princess was horrified when she heard what her father had done and begged him to change his mind, but her father was determined to carry out his bargain." From Charlotte Huck, Princess Furball. Okay, Part 14. There was a kind of peace and surrender. Though it shamed her, a part of Devon embraced the relief of simply giving up. The only path back to her daughter was also the path of least resistance, and so, 7 months after her failed escape, Devon did not fight when the Fairweather aunts came to prepare her for a second wedding. "Breathe in, love," Aunt Beulah said, fingers against her ribcage. "The marrying doesn't last forever. Stay strong and stand tall." Devon sucked in and stood straighter. It was the same heavily embroidered Romanian dress that she'd first been gifted more than 4 years ago. Only now, it was tight across the bosom and hips, and they had to fight with the fabric a little. These things were to be expected. She was older and had birthed a child, her daughter. No, don't think of Salem. Strong hands pulled the laces taut, and Devon imagined that that she was allowing her heart to be laced into her body. Keep it together. Another marriage, another child, and then she'd be able to petition to see them. Inwardly, she was already making arguments. She could ask Fairdray for advice if she ever saw the other bride again. Did Fairdray want to see her children? Did she care? She seemed bleak at Devon's wedding, on reflection. There were princesses of a kind. They were princesses of a kind, and this was how princesses lived. Safe in towers, married to men who competed for them, one way or another. Even in the happiest fairy tales, princesses did not usually have much choice. There were prizes to be won or given away, and there was no other context in which she could understand her life. On a too hot July afternoon, Devon left her childhood home for the second time. Her departure went unheralded on this occasion, the aunts hiding in their rooms, the uncles steadfastly ignoring her. Maybe there was no longer any need for the pretense, or else they were just genuinely embarrassed. Either way, Devon was grateful. A family send-off for her second unwanted marriage would have felt cruel beyond bearing. Instead, she was bundled into a much smaller limousine with a pair of knights for her entourage, one of whom was Ramsay himself. The last time she'd seen her brother, he'd been standing over her in a wintry forest, weapon pointed at her head. "After you," Ramsay said, and even smiled, sort of. Devon shuddered and got into the vehicle. She ended up squashed between Ramsay and another knight named Paulton. Ike sat across from them. A single dragon loomed in the next seat, soft hands tucked between large knees, an unknowable face hidden by a motorcycle helmet. "Told you I'd make it for the second wedding," Ramsay said, and laughed like he'd delivered a joke. "How you've been?" Devon pressed her lips together and stared at the floor. She could not bear to make friendly conversation. The drive from Yorkshire to the Norfolk coast took considerably longer than the drive from Yorkshire to Birmingham. Lulled by the motion of the vehicle and disinterest in the landscape outside, she dozed off for real, only to be shaken awake what seemed like moments later by Ramsay saying, "We're almost there." Devon nodded, remembered that she hated him now, and looked out the window to avoid his gaze. Her brother stifled a yawn. Easterbrook Manor was like no other house that Devon would ever again visit. She sat in subdued silence as they drove over a well-paved road through the family grounds, stunned by the gardens, working orchard, small organic farm, and a bizarre series of moving structures that Ramsay informed her were windmills. "Windmills?" she said, curiosity briefly overpowering her hatred. "Or electricity?" "Yep, electricity is sellable. The Easterbrooks have successfully leased much of their land to human business." Seasonal fruit pickers moved through the fields, working and caring for them. Tractors pottered in methodical rows. The workers were poorly dressed and many seemed tired. "I thought we weren't supposed to interact with humans," Devon said. "And why are most of them women? I would have thought women wouldn't want such jobs." "Better field labor than brothel labor," said Paulton. A muscle jumped in his cheek. "Brothel?" Unease coiled in Devon's belly. She understood the idea of brothels from her scattered reading, but what that had to do with the family, she didn't grasp. Aye, it's a roulette of bad choices, Paulton said. Farmhand if you're lucky, brothel if you're not. Organ harvesters if you're too old for either. It's a grim business. Interaction is fine. Integration isn't, Ramsay said, ignoring his colleague's interjection. The Easterbrooks don't integrate with humans. No humans are employed inside the actual house. In fact, most of these people aren't employed at all, strictly speaking, because they're in this country illegally and are just grateful for whatever pay they can get. He rolled down the window, hanging an elbow out. It's a good racket. Aside from a couple techies, most of the Easterbrook boys are stewards and landlords. Paulton snorted. That's one word for it. Who take enough of a cut from the farms and energy mills to keep the house going, Ramsay went on, giving him a hard glare. And in turn, that means they spent less time among the local population than lads in other houses. Your last husband, in comparison, had to be very careful to stay out of close human contact in his job. It's dirty money made with suffering. Can't believe the patriarchs allow it, honestly. Paulton looked aggrieved. My house, the Gladstones, don't do anything of that sort. The air inside the limousine seemed to be growing thicker and warmer. Come on, it's only humans, Ramsay said, sounding annoyed. Not like they're trafficking in other book eaters. Trafficking. Transitive or intransitive verb. The word had a number of definitions, but none of them made sense in the context her brothers were using. What was so bad about transporting people? Wasn't that what trains and cars did? Don't be obtuse, Paulton said. Sure, they're only humans, but have you seen those hellholes they keep the girls in? I wouldn't put a dragon in one of those. Ramsay started laughing. Since when were you such a fucking softie? Enough, Paulton, Ike said. And Ramsay, act your age and station for heaven's sake. Act my age? Ramsay still sounded amused. How about you mind your own business and keep your mouth shut, you decrepit old fuck? Knights don't take orders from you. His easy contempt startled Devon. It startled Ike too. His hands fluttered and he blinked owlishly. Besides, Paul and I are only joking around, aren't we, lad? Ramsay jostled the other man's shoulder. Paulton pulled a face, muttered something unintelligible. Ike, to Devon's astonishment, said nothing at all. Gravel crunched as the car ground to a stop. Ike opened the door, still silent, and ducked elegantly from the car. Devon dragged herself out and stood to stiff attention. Princesses behaved politely, always, and this was her role. She didn't have Ramsay's freedom to be rude to their uncle/father. Easterbrook Manor was old-fashioned, kept in its original Tudor design, but the interior was painfully modern and bright. Lights flooded the entry hall, and everything from the internal doors to the chandeliers seemed to be set with glass. Quartz chips refracted and sparkled from the red marble floor. White shelves directly filled the alcoves, the books upon them arranged by color and size to create an undulating rainbow of spines. A crisp bibliosmia scent of freshly printed paper with a faint undercurrent of petroleum. Devon wrinkled her nose. Modern books had good stories, but she hated the oily taste of glossy pages. Celebrations were already on the way. A handful of people drifted past, laughing and drinking from flutes that refracted yet more light. All in formal dress and all wearing jewelry, sparkles and shine everywhere. Devon put a hand to her head, overwhelmed by the glittering. There you are, Ike. Madley Easterbrook came down the main stairwell with casual confidence. 2 other men at his heels, all 3 of them in pale suits. Madley was younger than Luton, though still older than Devon. Taller than Luton, though still shorter than Devon. Sepia skin and dark, tightly curled hair spoke to the Mediterranean heritage. Book eaters often had complex and convoluted ethnicities. The different households across different continents had long ago blended with lineages, bolstering failing lines on all sides. Only delaying the inevitable, she thought. Increasingly, there were just fewer book eater families to merge with, and those who survived in other countries were harder and harder to access. Passports, immigration, paperwork, visas, and all that official stuff made cross-continental marriage almost impossible to arrange in modern times. Always a pleasure. Ike had recovered his poise. He wore a wide, toothy smile he only reserved for other men of the families, and had never shared with her. I am pleased to introduce you to Devon. Every eye fell on her, and she stiffened under the onslaught of attention. Hello, kid. Madley was difficult to look at. That pearl-colored suit turned him into a blazing beacon in their overlit house. Good lord, you're a tall one, aren't you? He gave her shoulder a squeeze, gripping much too hard. Devon steeled herself into not flinching. Showing weakness to this man would invite derision, she felt. Luton had been cold and indifferent. Madley, she suspected, might be actively unpleasant. The kind of man, in fact, who trafficked humans without a whisper or remorse. When he got no response, Madley wheeled away and said, These are 2 of my brothers, White and Jarrow. Congratulations on your wedding, cousin. White picked a cuticle on his nails. His real attention was on the party happening in the reception room. Congratulations, cousin, Jarrow echoed awkwardly. He looked even younger than her, and she was only 23. Happy returns. Thanks. The banality of the exchange grated on her. Very kind. Madley swept his arm to one side. White, please escort the knights to the barracks where they can check in their dragon. Jarrow, if you'd be so good as to escort our bride to the celebrations. He offered a twisting smile to Ike. And cousin, if you'd like to come with me to the office, we can finish discussing the business side of things. Ramsay and Paulton left with White, Dragon trailing after them. Ike disappeared with Madley, none of them so much as glancing her way. And Devon stood in a daze, feeling as if nothing about the day were real or tangible. Get through the wedding, she reminded herself. One day at a time. Wedding, marriage, child, then Salem. Eventually, there was nothing else she could do. If you'll follow me, Miss Fairweather. Jarrow's strong Norfolk accent clagged her ears. We've a party on for you. Looking forward to it, she said, almost truthfully. At least the party would be a distraction with plenty of alcohol. Devon thought she understood Faraday a little better these days. The older woman's smile, so cheerful at the time, seemed brittle and forced on reflection. As they approached the reception room, a pair of young men pushed past in a rush, carrying stained glasses. One of them shoved the dining room door wide as it swung back. The figure of Luton Winterfield was bravely visible, laughing and joking. Devon froze in place. Cold sick built up in her stomach and threatened to rise in her throat. How dare he come here, be here, torment her again, see her like this when he had her daughter, beautiful Salem, tucked away in. No, her feet wouldn't move. She could not face Salem's father, Salem's kidnapper. Jaro paused. Is something wrong? I changed my mind. I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to be here. Her voice seemed to echo in the waiting room, ricocheting off the stupid glass, everything, and the two bright lights. The two bright lights. He tugged at an earlobe. You don't want to go to the wedding celebration? I thought brides liked the parties. She was supposed to say something, a chance to recover the facade and pretend everything was fine. Submit, be passive, be cowed and give no threat, and earn the chance to see Salem again. Somehow she managed to stutter out the words. They're very noisy, too many people. Stupid, like she was a small child frightened by lightning. Except she was afraid of this Easterbrook boy whose family trafficked in lives even if they were human. Of Madley, cruel and arrogant, whom she would have to marry. If Jaro took offense to her words, she would be in trouble. But even as she filled her lungs with breath to say, all right, let's go in now, Luton half turned to address someone else, and Davon's resolve crumbled afresh. She pressed up against the wall where he wouldn't see her. The door slowly drifted shut again, obscuring the room. Jaro said, "Was your first husband in there?" His guess skewered her. She realized too late she was nodding, tried to shake her head instead. The room spun, the lights searing inside her head. Why was everything so sodding bright? Sorry, I just need a moment and then I can go in. Lying. Her courage was dropping second by second. He astonished her by saying, "Do you like video games?" The question dispersed her mounting distress with its sheer unexpectedness. Video game, now, Devon said, struggling to keep her composure as she confusedly rifled through her internal dictionary, an electronic game in which players control images on a video screen. She frowned. What does that even mean? Jaro broke into a grin. You had to eat dictionary pages too? Glad I wasn't the only rebel child. Which one did they give you? Merriam-Webster. She wondered if she should specify the edition, but decided it didn't matter. Her heart rate slowed. The heat inside her chest dying down a little. We eat Oxford in this house, but only those of us who ask too many questions, too young. He pointed toward the stairs, so recently descended. Come on, I'll give you a little tour of the house and introduce you to some games. Might not be a cup of tea, but it's probably better than gnawing on your own nerves, right? Right, sure. Anything to stave off the misery of her own wedding for a few moments. Anything to avoid being reminded how far she was from Salem, how long it had been since she'd seen her daughter. Jaro led her up 2 floors, down hallways lined with postmodern art and chandeliers that sprouted from the ceiling every 5 feet. The carpet squished like mulch under her ballet flats, and the air reeked of fall floral scents. Several more hallways later, they fetched up in what was apparently the gaming room. It was like she'd stepped into a parallel universe. She stared, dumbfounded, at the large entertainment center that covered one entire wall. It housed an equally large television screen connected to a small gray box trailing wires, one of which in a strange curved device covered in plastic buttons. Devon had never seen anything like it before. Her own manner skewed modern nonsense, as Ike would have phrased it. "This is my PlayStation," Jaro said, as if that information were illuminating. He pressed her the knobby, curved device. "Here, have a controller and take a seat." She sat on the large red sofa, holding the thing in her palms. "What does it control?" "No lights in here except for which poured from the screens, blissfully dark." "The game, silly. Hold it like this." He arranged her inflexible fingers into a counterintuitive position. Devon did her best, the controller sitting awkward in her palms, fingers at her shoulder. Fingers in strange angles. "Maybe you'd better take it," she said, handing the thing back to him. "I'm not sure it suits me." "Just takes practice." Jaro took the controller off her and pressed buttons on the PlayStation. The screen changed. "You want a beer before we start?" He pronounced beer like bear. Devon had never drunk beer pronounced bear or otherwise. "Yes, I'd love one, ta." Oh, okay. Cool. He disappeared out of her sight toward a storeroom at the back. The words Tomb Raider appeared on screen, along with some credits and an opening sequence. A dark-haired woman in a blue top with a crisp Queen's English accent started speaking to an American man. She appeared to be some kind of spy. Devon, who had never seen a film or cartoon or television of any kind, let alone a video game, gaped at the screen in spellbound astonishment. It was the closest thing she'd ever seen to real magic. Jaro came back, put down 2 cans of beer, and dropped next to her on the couch. "You ready?" He'd taken off his smart jacket and already seemed happier, more at ease. "How come only your house gets this stuff?" Devon tipped back her beer. It hit far less hard than wine, and though sour and yeasty like one of Uncle Rumford's military fiction novels, went down easily enough. "I love games already, and we haven't done anything yet." He laughed. "Watch me for a bit, and I'll show you how to play. Only one person can use the controller at a time, so we'll have to take turns." Devon sipped from her beer. She watched him play and listened to his explanations, drinking in the details, fascinated by the technology. This was not how she had expected her day to go. Not that she was complaining. After the first level, she said, "Can I try again?" Jaro ceded her the controller with polite reluctance. Devon died in-game almost immediately, laughed out loud, and restarted for another attempt. The game was simply another medium for stories, much as books were, albeit electronic instead of paper-based. She let herself forget about the wedding and the old country dress that squashed her ribs. Casagon, oh my god! Thank you so much for the raid! Hello! Hello everybody! How are you guys doing? How was your stream? Let's see. What do we got here? Hi Zellies, how's it going? Oh, you're streaming art? Ooh, what did you make? What did you do, Casagon? Hell yeah. We're just chilling here today. We're just doing our usual Sunday, reading a book, editing some cosplay photos. Ooh, that sounds cool. I love that. I gotta check those photos out eventually. For sure. We're just doing our usual thing right now. Every Sunday at 5 p.m. EST, I'm going to be sitting here reading a book. Every other day and after the book, we play a variety of games. Genshin, Honkai. Currently, I'm also doing a lot of Celeste. I'm trying to beat every chapter. We are at the end of chapter, we're like at the middle of like chapter 9 right now. So that's gonna be a while, but probably today after the book, we're gonna be doing Genshin. I've been going through it a little bit recently, and I don't think I have the focus and the mental capacity right now for Celeste. But yeah, no, it's great to see you, Kesagon. It's been a while, and I'm glad your stream went well. And I hope you guys can just sit back, relax, and I guess listen to me reading a book. As this is fun but demanding, it is super fun. I am absolutely enjoying it, even though I die like, I think I've died a total of like almost 14,000 times so far. I've done like all 7 chapters, all their B-sides and all their C-sides, and like 20% of chapter 9, and I probably died like 14,000 times. It's a lot. 7C took me alone like over 1,000 attempts. I died over 1,000 times in the last room. It's a really tough game, and if I'm not mentally at my A game for that, I don't think I could do it. And right now I've been going through a lot, so I'll take it easy, but we're definitely going to be finishing that soon. And in Genshin, I still have to do the summer stuff, and Nefa's story. I'll be saving for Lauma now, because oh my god, she's so fucking pretty. I love her. I love her design. But let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, they're playing a video game right now in this book. Let's see. Right. Jaro seated her, the controller, with polite reluctance. Devon died in-game almost immediately, laughed out loud, and restarted for another attempt. The game was simply another medium for stories, much as books were, albeit electronic instead of paper-based. She let herself forget about the wedding and the old country dress that squashed her ribs. Lara Croft's struggles to run, jump, shoot, and solve puzzles became Devon's struggles, and that suited her fine, because Lara's problems were far more fun than Devon's own. A revelation struck her, and she hit pause, thunderbolted by an idea. Something wrong? Jaro said. She's a princess. He shot her a quizzical look, one eyebrow raised. Kind of. If you take a really loose definition of the word, Lara is aristocratic. Gentry, I suppose, which is pretty similar. Devon barely heard him. She could only look at the choppy, blue-shirted woman on the screen. A princess who rejected her castle in favor of adventures and muddy boots. Who went treasure hunting with a gun strapped to her thigh and fought bad guys. I don't understand, she said. Why can't I be a Lara Croft kind of princess? Why am I like this? The controller sat heavy, with like a misshapen stone. Her eyes grew hot from a toxic potion of beer and mixed emotions. Too many for her to process or name, even with the help of the dictionary in her brain. Jaro tugged at a curl. The door banged open, making both of them jump. Matley Easterbrook walked in, to the sight of Devon sitting startled and drunk, and Jaro next to her, jacketless and guilty. I've been scouring the house, Matley said, jabbing a finger. Have you both been here the whole time? It's my bad, Jaro said quickly. I asked if she wanted to try a gaming console. For 2 hours, you had one task, to take her down the hall. The fault is mine, Devon cut in. We don't have games in Fairweather Manor. My family's a little old-fashioned about human tech. I was just curious. Matley shifted his gaze. Your uncle's having a fit, girl. He thought you'd done a runner again, since apparently you have a history of that kind of thing. But here you are, hiding away with my little brother. He sniggered, so juvenile for a grown man of his age. Any other bloke and I'd be questioning your fidelity. Devon blinked, confused. Jaro had gone beet red. The context was missing, but Matley was either mocking her or Jaro, or both. Anyway, you're here and not gone walkabout. He crooked a finger as if she were a dog. On your feet, love. The night's only getting older. A buzzing filled her ears and her peripheral vision seemed to fall away. She could only see Matley, framed by long, hard lines and too much light. There would be no drink or drugs to mask this encounter. Those small kindnesses Luton had carelessly offered, her newest husband would be a thing to endure, not experience. So Devon stood up, swept with sudden nausea. Catch you later, she said over her shoulder, and strode from the games room at Matley's side, held upright by the laces of her dress. Jaro gave a tight nod from his place on the couch, ensconced in silence and staring at the controller in his lap. And that's the end of part 14. And with that, Act 2. Man, this poor woman. Why do these families why are these families just so obsessed with, I don't know how to even say it anymore. I do not like what these families are standing for and how their values are, like how they handle their values and present their values. It's an interesting story and it's only a short book, so we're probably gonna definitely finish it, but goddamn, I do not agree with their values at all. I probably shouldn't anyway. They're written that way for a reason, but oh my god, they're so unlikable. All right, so that was 8 years ago. 6. All right, now we're jumping back into the present day. Part 15. Act 3 is called Witching Hour. All right, Part 15. Ramsay and the Mountain of Light. In the present day, another quote being, there's a point, you know, where treachery is so complete and unashamed that it becomes statesmanship. From George MacDonald Fraser in Flashman and the Mountain of Light. Ramsay had found the emergency stop easily enough and cut the wiring that controlled the lights. Most were out and the rest on the blink. The 10:15 to Edinburgh became a long stretch of dark, unmoving carriages. He darted down the aisles, blade in hand and perfectly comfortable in the shadows that obscured human vision. A slice, a nick, a few close shaves, screams and shrieks, a couple dozen humans bleeding lightly, badly frightened. The ensuing stampede was pure delight. He had discovered as a young man that humans, and indeed many eaters, had a propensity to take the known for granted, to believe that events or experiences would continuously remain predictable. Ramsey had learned to abuse this assumption. When he broke their expectations spectacularly, it was easy to seize control. Like tonight, for example. A practical and reasonable thinker would pinpoint that a single man with a knife was hardly a threat to an entire carriage, let alone a whole train. If they tackled him en masse, he'd be done for, even with superior eater strength. But by acting unexpectedly, he had upended their faith in events remaining logical. Rationality always went up in smoke at this stage. A peek through the window. Devon loping off into the fields, Hester and Kai at her side. Job done then. No need for excess violence. Better make himself scarce before the chickens grew courage. They did outnumber him significantly, even if they had forgotten that. Ramsey backtracked toward the nearest exit, partially retracing Devon's footsteps, pushed through the screams and cries, revolting cowardice. You thought. Outside, finally, some humans out here, but not as many, not so packed in. The air was refreshing and crisp, a break from the meaty smell of crowds. He took a good lungful, stashed the knife back in its leg holster. Felt good there. Carrying a short blade was gentlemanly. Something caught his eye, strewn on the trampled ground. Ramsey walked over, nudged it with his foot. A purse, one he recognized. Hester Ravenscar had been carrying something similar. Could be hers. Expensive leather rubbed slick and dry beneath his hands as he picked it up, rifled through it gently. Cold metal. Aha! He withdrew the pistol, stared at it. A 5-shooter. It had been reloaded. Who kept a gun in their purse? Someone who wanted to conceal it, not on their body. Who would leave it behind? Someone in a hurry. Definitely Hester. Was sure of that now. He turned the thing over, examining. Expensive and old. Custom? Yes, but based on the standard revolver. He recognized the emblem burned to the haft, too. 3 red stars and a thick red line sitting above a stylized lion. The motto, in defiance. He grinned. The Ravenscar crest. Turned the gun over. On the pistol butt, very subtle, were engraved the initials W.R. Interesting indeed, he guessed. That was too weak a word. He'd have staked a lot of fucking money on it that this gun had once belonged to Weston Ravenscar, until he'd been violently removed by his own offspring. Aloud to the world at large, Ramsey said, musing, did he give this to Hester, or did she take it from his corpse? Why does she have it instead of Killock? And then listened intently, as if someone might answer. No one did, of course. The humans on the train were still busy being noisy little brats, only slightly calmer now that their attacker was apparently no longer among them. Someone had found the light and fixed them, which abated their fear. Intriguing. But you are not a question I can pursue at this point. Ramsey informed the gun, and then slung the whole bag over one shoulder. He had nothing better to carry it in, and wasn't daft enough to shove a loaded weapon into his waistband. The train tracks stretched tediously. Best start walking or he'd be here all night. There was a lot to do. Before anything further could happen with his sister or the Ravenscars, Ramsey had business with his own knights to settle first. The gun had given Ramsey ideas. So he set off, heading southwest, not due west, as Devon had. Realized he was hungry. Been a long evening. He wrested free his emergency book, stored in the same body pouch as the transmitter. Flashman novel, his favorite kind of comfort food. Bit through a corner, pleased by the creamy texture of the pages. Gunfights and sex sizzled on his tongue. The 6 families did not discriminate by skin color, so neither did Ramsay. Couldn't afford to when their population was barely sustainable. But the inherent racism and bawdiness of those Flashman books had already struck him as flavorful and fascinating all the same. Self-hate was intrinsic to the entire human race. He'd come to that conclusion after his various dealings with humans. When they could not find enough to dislike in their own selves, human folk went looking for flaws in their neighbors. Delicious, that tendency. A buzzing against his hip. Ramsay glanced down. The rattlesnake hiss of a mobile phone going off in his pocket. Swallowed a last mouthful of book and pulled out his phone. Pressed the green button to answer. Rams? Elend sounded stressed as usual. Where the hell are you gone? You're all over the news. We are all over the news, thanks to Kingsley. Couldn't keep the tartness out of his voice. I'm somewhere between Newcastle and Berwick. Where's the commander? Still in Newcastle. He's not best pleased. Not pleased at all. Elend's voice dropped into a semi-whisper. Says your spy has betrayed us. I think he's dead set on pinning the blame for tonight's disaster on you. Is he now? Stay cheerful, Ramsay thought. Stay unruffled. Stay in control of the conversation. It's funny, because my spy, as he calls her, has done nothing to be of the kind. Devon and Hester Ravenscar are traveling to the Ravenscar hideout. Couldn't ask for a better solution. A caught breath. Are you sure? You all saw Hester there, and I spoke to Devon on the train. They got off before Berwick, and she'll be in touch shortly. Wants us to send a knight to check in on them by following her phone signal. Well, that changes everything. I'll let Kingsley know. No, Ramsay said. Say nothing to Kingsley. A confused silence. But Ramsay altered his tone, sweetened it. Hey, you've been a good friend. Trust me or don't on this one. I won't judge you, but I haven't got time to explain. Only I think it's better I deliver the news in person. And what do you want me to tell him? That I'll be waiting for him and all the rest of you at St. Michael's Church just outside Alnwick. Checked his wristwatch, scanned the sky. ETA 3 hours. Damn, Raz. When you say waiting for him, a muttered phrase that wasn't audible followed by, fuck it, I'll pass on your message. Can't guarantee how he'll react. Cheers, mate. Ramsay hung up, mentally picturing the commander's face as he stuffed the phone away. The sullen, deep lines. Nightly life had been a shock to Child Ramsay. Training was harsh, and the older knights let their youths sort out any aggression and disagreement among themselves, meaning the youngest and smallest suffered the worst. Ramsay, proud and young, had suffered spectacularly. The first night in Oxford, Kingsley Davenport had taught Ramsay the secret of fear and power by locking him in a room with a live, ravenously hungry dragon and waiting till it nearly killed Ramsay before giving a command word at the last moment to keep it in check. Afterward, while Ramsay curled on the floor of his new home and cried like a girl, Kingsley had bent down and said, "You will never have to fear what you have mastered." The words meant nothing at first. He hadn't understood at the time, but he remembered the words all the same. Every month or so, in between the trainings and beatings and exhausting regimen, Kingsley would repeat the exercise, putting Ramsay back in that room with an unleashed dragon. Learn to handle your fears. All the young men went through it, still dreamed of those encounters. But he got older and learned to fight and memorized command words. Soon, those sessions did nothing at all to spark fear in Ramsay until at last, at the age of 24, he got bored and killed the fucking dragon. broke its head against the wall, and screamed at it while it bled to death because he could. Afterward, such stillness. The silence shocking, Kingsley coming in, hand landing heavy on Ramsay's shoulder, and a gravel grinding voice saying, "You will never have to fear what you have mastered." Only this time, Ramsay had understood it. Banish fear by dominating what you fear. Simple enough. Amazing he'd not thought of such self-evident truth on his own. Some things had to be experienced to be understood, though. As a lad, Ramsay had cursed the man for dragging him out of Fairweather and upending his life. As an adult, he was thankful. Cruel training had hammered strength into his spine, lent a cold speed to his actions, sharpened his raw edges. Violence, he came to realize, had only happened to him because he had once been the kind of person to deserve it. These days, he was another kind of person, one who meted violence out instead of suffering it. He would not feel guilty for causing harm any longer. If the people he hurt didn't like being hurt, they should never have been weak in the first place. So Kingsley had taught him, and so Ramsay had learned. But Kingsley had forgotten all the things he taught others. Become weak, become the kind of person who made mistakes, the kind of person who deserved to be hurt. At present, Ramsay had some new thoughts about that. A couple hours of walking, and he finally washed up in some suburb or in some suburb or another. It wasn't Alnwick though. Checked his watch, looked around. It was 2 a.m. on Christmas Day. No buses, no taxis. He'd left his motorbike in Newcastle. For the sake of speed, Ramsay decided he'd have to nick a vehicle rather than walk and be late. The nearest house had a car parked in the garage. A Toyota Prius, red, newish. That would do. Only he needed a key for the car, and it meant breaking into the house to find it. Front doors were easy to jimmy. He had no trouble. Gripped the handle, wrenched until the internal mechanism snapped. Wrestled into a family home strewn with toys and Christmas Eve mess. He sniffed at the smell of cold goose, curled a lip at the unwashed flute glasses still pooled with the last night's champagne. Gone flat now. Some families celebrated Christmas, some didn't. The Fairweathers had with their usual Romanian customs. The Knights hadn't. Ramsay remembered liking the festive fun, but could no longer enjoy the memory of anything Fairweather related. Not anymore. Told himself to focus, and then rifled casually through the kitchen until he found the car keys hanging on a hook. Got it. He turned to go. A small girl was peeking around the corner wearing unicorn pajamas. Morning, little one. No need to alarm or harm the kid, he decided. If she started howling, he could always reassess the situation. What are you doing out of bed, eh? I heard you come in, she said self-importantly, and then added with a suspicion he found extremely admirable. You don't look like Father Christmas at all. I'm one of his elves, he told her, cheeky on a whim. Can you keep quiet till I'm gone? She did keep quiet, only giggling a little bit when Ramsay walked out of the front door and unlocked the red Toyota Prius. Merry fucking Christmas. He gave the girl a grin and a wave, then put the car into fifth gear, roaring down the icy roadway with indifferent abandon. Street signs pointed toward the town he wanted. He followed. Less than 45 minutes till the rendezvous, plenty of time, and then his own personal reckoning with Kingsley. Close, he could sense it. The make or break moment of their order, transformation or disintegration, could go either way. He was excited by either prospect, satisfied he'd have a major player regardless. He had been a major player regardless. Without the Knights, the families might have died out. too self-serving and small-minded to arrange fair marriages and keep the lineages from collapsing. They should have all been on their knees with gratitude for the knights ruling and protecting and serving. Instead, the patriarch spoke of disbanding and redundant organizations in casual tones. The family didn't care, saw the knights as finished, superfluous in the face of fertility treatments. No arranged marriages with reluctant houses meant no need to internally enforce those monetary agreements and keep the lines of succession flowing. No more heavy-handed knight commanders wielding more power and influence than any non-patriarch was ever supposed to do. And the dragons? Long a source of contention the patriarchs could not form a consensus on. Could be disposed of entirely. Not acceptable. Not to Ramsay. He cared intensely whether the knights survived, found himself appalled by the idea they might be disbanded. The discussion of their order predicted a kind of dissolution of himself. Knight was all that he was, and without that identity or purpose, he might disappear into the ether. So he felt anyway. And he didn't fear that dissolution exactly. He feared almost nothing anymore. But he did object to it. Fertility treatments on the horizon meant nothing. Marriages would still be fraught. Still need arranging. Dragons were still useful in a myriad of ways. He saw no reason those things should change. But without redemption, it would be impossible to maintain their power. And so the quest for redemption mattered to him, because the knights mattered to him. Make or break indeed. Add to that the problem of Kingsley. Mentor, commander, father figure, frightful bastard. All good things, except now he was an incompetent old man, brain bogged down from years of book eating, making decisions too slowly. Fearful in his old age, mastered by worries instead of measuring them and mastering them. The patriarchs ran circles around him. He thought of tonight's bloodbath, all because Kingsley had feared the situation and striven out of to control it. An admirable goal, except he'd lost control of it instead, given it away to a junior officer rather than staying involved himself or staying on top of things. That was the clincher and the nuance. Dominate what you feared, sure, but the commander had confused lashing out blindly with taking decisive action. Ramsay wouldn't make that mistake. He wouldn't forgive Kingsley for it either. In this buzzing mode of sleep-deprived, adrenaline-fueled anticipation, he arrived at last in the market town of Alnwick, carrying no other possessions beyond some cash, a long-distance bomb transmitter, and a purse with its unexpected gun, bullets jingling in the inner compartment. A far cry from several days ago when he'd driven to Newcastle with a full squad of knights, a hefty suitcase, and his favorite dragon. On the other hand, he was one step closer to salvaging the future of his order, and likewise his place within it. Ramsay considered the trade-off more than adequate, sent a mental hat tip in Devon's direction for her role in that. Like so many places in the north, Alnwick was all history and no future. Gardens and castles for tourists, dwindling high streets, and rising unemployment for locals. He skirted the town center, parked his car on a quiet road, and got out, leather bag in tow. Left the door open with the keys that is still in the ignition. Someone else would nick the car and cover his fingerprints with their own. He walked the remaining distance to St. Michael's Church. 7 motorbikes were parked around the church. Men would be waiting inside. His watch read 3 a.m., the witching hour. Oddly appropriate. Ramsay smiled, jaunted to the crumbling gravestones, enjoyed the atmosphere, enjoyed the cool and quiet place the whole world became when all the humans had fucked off to bed. And then he stopped in front of the doors, contemplating. A tiny part of him was still afraid of Kingsley, of facing him down. He could admit it, just for a moment. Fear was a long-lived, enduring thing, up until the very last moment when you mastered it. This was normal. A deep breath, he dug into the church. Seven knights stood in shadow, clustered at the front. One was Eland, a good friend. The rest were familiar too. Lanfor, Prescott, Ashby, Wick, Stalham. But Ramsay didn't care about them. Someone had knocked over the podium to create more room. Dramatic moonlight, like a film, Flashman would have approved. Merry Christmas, one and all. Ramsay Fairweather walked up the aisle like an abandoned groom, still in the ticket collector's jacket and cap, ill-fitting to tight. A woman's leather handbag slung from one shoulder. He'd never felt more confident and more anxious. Save the niceties. Kingsley stepped forward with a well-disguised limp cane, scraping and dragging on the echoing floor. Today has been the ruination of us. If the Knight Commander ever wore a color other than black, Ramsay had never seen it. Could not envisage this man as dressed in any other way. Head shaved clothes, smart cap, black gloves, and now, with the onset of years, a black cane. That wide shoulder frame, once so menacing to a much younger Ramsay, had stooped and caved with the years. The muscular weight of him withering into bony gauntness. Ramsay made a deferential salute. Well, you would know, sir. The past year has been a disaster under your leadership. Uneasy silence. Eland looked sick, the other knights merely surprised by Ramsay's reckless tendencies. Your spy is gone and the Ravenscar with her, when we could have had them both. Kingsley, so angry and leery. And you lay the blame at my feet? The Ravenscar patriarchs were notoriously careful with their secrets, Ramsay said blandly. We have no reason to assume they shared their scientific knowledge with a woman, not when Killock is still alive. And there are plenty of other sons in the house. Seizing Hester might not have lost us the Ravenscars forever. Seizing Hester might have lost us the Ravenscars forever. The commander hesitated, off balance. That pissed Ramsay off. Younger Kingsley would never have shown such weakness. The old man was cracking. The other knights saw it, exchanged anxious glances. Ramsay could see them adjusting, weighing, considering the situation as it changed, a hint of respect for his brass. We don't know the status of the other Ravenscars, Kingsley said at last. We have no guarantees that any of them are still alive. If we lost that trail, if we cannot track your sister to her destination, then we are done and dusted. For all any of us know, Killock could be dead, or Hester living apart from the others. See this? Ramsay withdrew the embellished pistol, held it high so they could see the crest, plain in the moonlight. This gun belonged to Weston Ravenscar, the same one Hester was using at the train station. I got it off Devon. A slight lie, a simplification of events. A few hours ago, the surviving Ravenscars are alive. And well. Killock specifically is alive and well. Keep our cool, follow the trail, and we'll have what we're looking for. Kingsley glowered and extended a hand. Let me see that. As you like. Ramsay leveled the pistol and fired. The bullet blew out the back of Kingsley's head. Gore showered the podium, and Ramsey took a large step back, revolver sweeping the room. Having a gun was every bit as fun as he'd hoped. Iowa's. What the fuck? How are you doing, Oasis? Ramsey just blew Kingsley's head off, okay? He just shot the guy. Fucking hell. I definitely didn't expect that. But okay. Christ. Holy shit. Ramsey, what the fuck? All of them are shouting and talking. I'm in for whatever the stream brings. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do Genshin today. I'm not in the right, like, headspace for Celeste, I feel. I get too frustrated right now. So we're just gonna chill on Genshin afterwards. Do more of the summer event, do more, maybe do an FS quest. We're probably not gonna do the book for too much longer as well. But holy shit, this is actually getting interesting now. Alright. All of them shouting and talking, hands going to hips where hidden blades were carried. Except Elend. Surprised yet resigned. Calm too. Good old E. Ramsey said, guns still held level. This operation has been a shit show from the start to finish. Kingsley got 4 of us killed tonight because of his own irrational fears, and that's 4 more than we could afford to lose. Bury this bastard, follow my lead, and in 2 days, we can have redemption again. Start producing it within our base even. Paused to let them process that. Gentlemen, we've succeeded in our mission. 2 years of work and the restoration of our old order is in sight. All that's left is to track Devon's location. Gestures, frantic glances, hissed communication as 7 men wrestled with the power shifted proposed to them. Ramsey waited. They would either kill him or follow him. Kingsley on the floor in front of him, a heap of flesh and crumpled clothes, the veins turning to dust and the skin to parchment as they watched, finally resembling what he'd been for years, a flimsy thing made of paper. You will never have to fear what you have mastered. You know I'll follow. Elend spoke first, his boots still stained with the commander's dried out inky blood. But did you have to kill him? He was killing our order with his idiocy, Ramsey said, gaze straying to the suit-clothed bundle of papery flesh. Men leaving in droves. Do we even have knights left down in Oxford? More shuffling feet, and then Lanforth said, guarded. 6 knights returned to their families yesterday, abandoned the post on the assumption that we're disbanding. 6 yesterday, 4 today. 10 nights gone in a weekend. Ramsey grimaced. What's our total remaining? Ashby answered this time. Less than 20 men, including us. He was looking any and everywhere except at the dried out corpse. About 8 dragons? Kingsley kept putting them down to conserve redemption, sir. The afterthought of sir. But with their ex-commander so recently dead, Ramsey felt it was a good sign. Yes, he had just committed a one-man coup, but he'd done so efficiently and with purpose, armed with evidence and a plan. They clung to his confidence, his competence as he stepped into a self-created power vacuum, promising all around. We can work with that. Tough, but we can work with that. Ramsay put a booted foot on Kingsley's papery corpse, crushed the chest to dust, the once beating heart to powder. He looked up, smiled. File out, men. We have a raid to plan and some prodigal ravens to catch. I did not expect that from Kingsley, from Ramsay, but what the fuck? That was, by the way, also the end of part 15. So time, part 16. We're going back again 6 years in the past. The quote this time is, knowing nothing of darkness or stars or moon, Photogen spent his days in hunting. On a great white horse, he swept over the grassy plains, glorying in the sun, fighting in the wind, killing the buffaloes. From George MacDonald, The History of Photogen and Necrotis. Or Nycteris. Okay. Memory was an anchor. It could ground you in a storm, keep you from drifting. But anchors could also weigh you down and keep you from sailing free. Devon's memories of Salem were both keeping her sane, yet also weighing her spirit with heaviness. She would wake alone each morning and lie in bed for several moments, just breathing, just thinking about her daughter. Some days, breathing was all you could do. Madly Easterbrook never stayed the entire night, and Devon was grateful for that, because she could not rest with a man in her room. Prey did not relax when predators lurked. Easterbrook Manor was large and lush and modern, many-roomed and fashionable. It had gardens and fields and a cultivated forest. It had stables with 6 horses and hired humans carefully vetted to look after them. Somewhere, there was even an indoor swimming pool and a gym. God, I wish I had that. The swimming pool and gym. I miss swimming. Devon had no interest in any of it. She hadn't left her quarters since the marriage night 2 weeks ago, and today would be no different. There was nothing to leave it for. She was only here to endure Madly, pregnancy, childbirth, the loss of her second child. Today felt particularly lethargic and pointless, for no particular reason she could name. After a while, she crawled out of bed, taking a long shower to scrub the stink of Madly off her skin. She came out of the bedroom and ensconced in a heavy towel, only to find that one of the staff had brought her breakfast while she was bathing. Yet another stack of fairy tales sat on her table. The books were the modern kind, with a glossy varnish to the pages that Devon found sickly. She walked over, still draped in a towel, and flipped upon a page listlessly. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young princess whose hair was the color of pure gold. She was frequently lonely and unhappy, for her mother had died when she was a baby and her father paid little attention to her. Devon flung the picture book hard. It fluttered rather than flew, landing simply at her feet. She picked it up and ripped the pages out one by one. Scraps of paper floated down. Think only of Salem and seeing her again. Don't care about this marriage. Don't think. Be like Ferdre. Switch it off. Live for better days. Live for that 10th birthday. She repeated that mantra to herself under her breath and until it was background hum of determination. Only it was so difficult to do or stick to when she had nothing but those 4 walls to occupy her time. A rap sounded at the door. Devon jolted, clutching the towel reflexively. Who is it? Jaro Easterbrook, said a muffled, somewhat familiar voice. We met on your first day here, if you remember. Do you have a minute? There was no sense antagonizing the people of this manor. Not if she could manage to pull herself together and be polite for a few moments. Just a second, please. She threw on a plain linen dress, toweled off her hair, and went on to let him in. Can I help you with something? Sort of. He shifted, lean weight, jittery as a race dog. I came to ask if you felt like playing Tomb Raider. You know, that game you tried here on your first day. Her brain actually could not grasp what he'd said. Pardon? I don't mean to offend. He tugged on his hoodie strings. Only, you seem to like video games and the fair weathers don't have them. Could be a fun thing to do, right? I thought I'd extend the offer if you wanted to come along and play again. Some princess climbed out of towers to escape or were rescued by princes with swords and ropes. Video games were hardly rope to a better life, but Tomb Raider still offered a kind of escape, if only in her mind. Right, she said. As long as I'm back by evening. Princesses always had to return from their dances by nightfall. Something that had seemed magical as a child, but rang ominous as an adult. Jaro's grin lit his face. Seize the day, eh? Devon followed him down a level, and most of the way across the sprawling, many-roomed manor. She hadn't left her room in so many days that just stepping outside made her feel exposed, as if she walked the halls naked, a sensation not helped by the prying eyes and whispering voices of the Easterbrook siblings and staff who they passed in the hallways. Jaro was either indifferent or inured to it. Her discomfort eased once they reached the game room. The sofa was criminally comfortable. Jaro had access to an unending supply of beer to drink and graphic novels to eat, and Tomb Raider took her far away from her own twisted story. For the first time since being torn from Salem, her spirits lifted a little. We could try something two-player, he said, after she died as Lara on yet another difficult level. Have you ever played Crash Bandicoot? It's brand new, just out. Devon shook her head, annoyed he even had to ask. Of course she hadn't tried Crash whatever bandit cute. She hadn't tried anything, having lived in a prison of edible fairy tales her whole life. Can we finish this one first? I don't mind if it is difficult. You're the guest. You offered her another beer, which she politely declined because Matley would fume if she showed up drunk. All of Jaro's awkwardness from earlier had subsided. Are you sure it's alright for me to be here? She said. Using your game room, I mean? It's not mine, not really. He was eating something called Watchmen. Ink heavy and rich tasting like all graphic novels. Consoles, games, all that belong to Vic. Who's Vic? Jaro took another bite from his graphic novel. Victoria Easterbrook, my oldest sister. He hesitated, chewing slowly. That bedroom you're staying in used to be hers too. The hair on the back of her neck prickled. Used to be? She doesn't live here anymore. A muscle in his shoulder twitched. He said almost as an afterthought. Vic liked games a lot. We used to play together. Currents flowed beneath the calm surface of his words, and Devon, seeing a thing she could drown in, said nothing. She had her own currents to deal with and didn't have enough headspace to even feel bad about ignoring his. Anyway, he finished the graphic novel and picked up the controller, polishing the plastic on his sleeve. You can come here all you like. Nobody else ever uses this place except me and her. Despite herself, Devon was aware of the room taking on a different texture based on the context he'd given. The wallpaper, for example, elegantly patterned and swooping dragonflies. Vic's choice, surely. Devon couldn't envisage Jaro having picked it out. The games themselves stood out too. Tomb Raider was definitely one that Devon would have also chosen, had she ever had the option. An adventuring princess would have been catnip for any book eater woman. Victoria might be gone, but her voice still echoed. The opening music started up, drawing her back into that shared virtual experience and away from the real world. She hardly noticed the passing of hours as they spent the rest of the afternoon and much of the evening in the games room. By some kind of unspoken agreement, neither of them mentioned the family again, nor Madley. She was therefore taken by surprise when, at a quarter to 7, Jaro hit pause and said, "It's getting late. I think you might need to go. I think you might need to go pretty soon." No, she stood too fast and knocked the coffee table. Empty beer cans wobbled. "Thanks for the invitation." "No problem," he said warmly. "Come back tomorrow if you want." "You don't have to invite me here because you feel sorry for me," she said, suddenly and uneasily defensive. "I'm a bride and I'm lucky. This might not be the life I expected when I was little, but it's better than not. It's better than a lot of people get." "I didn't say anything about feeling sorry for anyone," he said, and she couldn't read his expression. "I just get bored playing on my own, that's all, so you're welcome to come break up my boredom." "Bored?" she said, floored into forgetting her peak. "Of playing games?" "Anything is boring if it's all you've got." His sweeping gesture took in the small room with its stacks of comics and video games and wire-tangled technology, but she knew he was encompassing more. His family, hers, all of the family, book-eater life. "I eat more novels in a year than humans will read in a lifetime, and yes, I'm bloody bored." "There's worse things than boredom," she said. His face fell. I know there are. My sister, she used to say." Jaro blew a sigh and said, "Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. Come back tomorrow if you want." He waved a hand vaguely. "Only if you want to." She curled and uncurled her fists. "Why are you being kind to me?" "I'm not," he said uncomfortably. "You're a guest, I'm a host, and I have games. This is just basic courtesy." Basic courtesy. Along the way, she'd stopped being deserving of that, or other people had stopped bothering to give it. "I'll think about it." Devon slunk out in a rush, feeling confused and tired. The corridors drifted by in a blur, her thoughts whirling and keeping her distracted. She didn't understand their interactions. Either what Jaro wanted from her, or she from him. In a world dominated by family ties and nothing else, the concept of friendship baffled her. Jaro himself baffled her, full stop. He oozed discontent, and she couldn't understand what he had to be discontent about. He was open and easygoing, but also impenetrable and oddly inflexible. He was too much work, and the whole thing was more stress she didn't need. And yet that evening, Devon found herself turning over video game levels in her head. She was still thinking about the puzzles and strategies when Madley came to see her for their nightly duty, as he referred to their attempts to conceive. Tomb Raider puzzles continued to occupy her brain as she reluctantly peeled off clothes and climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling over Madley's shoulder. By the time he'd left, she thought of several solutions to try. Somewhere along the way, she'd come to a decision and cemented into the idea of returning to the games room. Sleep came swiftly after. In the morning, more fairy tales arrived for breakfast. She disdained the offering and instead took her time showering and got dressed with unhurried slowness before picking her way toward the games room. Jaro said nothing about her presence when she arrived. He seemed to have expected her. Beers and books waiting. Controller primed. Hoodie already on, as if he'd not moved or changed from the day before. He sat down, picked the controller up, and rested it delicately in her lap. I've been thinking about it that level. We're going about it wrong. Cool, let's have a go then. He flung himself back on the couch. The next 3 weeks were a strange kind of duality between the unpleasant physicality of her nights, followed by the disconnected gaming of her days. Neither of them spoke about Madley, her marriage, Vic, anything. Theirs was an alliance in distraction, a unified commitment to head in the sand escapism. And within that space, she could be safe and happy, buried in the worlds of Lara Croft until Tomb Raider wrapped up, after which they moved on to Final Fantasy, another vast digital world in which to get lost. After the second month of marriage, her cycle did not appear. Devon wasn't sure whether to be relieved for what had stopped or afraid for what came next. The misery of pregnancy, certainly, and all that reality entailed. She opted in the end for resilience. Salem had her heart, and no other child would take that place. Feel nothing, care for nothing, and he could not lose anything or be robbed. The doctor who came to Easterbrook Manor was a human man. Devon knew this not from the way he looked or walked or anything else he did, but because he could write. In front of her very eyes, he produced a clipboard with various forms and began filling them out. She craned her neck to see the letters scrawled. Devon Fairweather, female, age 23. The pen wobbled and scratched its way across the paper while she stared. Devon had attempted to write, like all book eaters did when they were young. And like all book eaters, her attempts had developed into illegible scrawls. Carry on too long and the muscles would cramp from wrist to forearm, black spots appearing in your vision. If the doctor was aware he performed a miracle, he did not show it. When the writing of forms was completed, he asked her to come closer while they worked their way through a basic physical exam, checking blood pressure, measuring height and weight, listening to her heart. Devon complied, albeit reluctantly. Her gaze kept drifting back to the clipboard paper in his lap, so casually scrawled with written words, it seemed an awful risk to bring a human to the heart of a family house. Of all people, surely he would be most likely to notice her inhumanness. He tapped her shoulder to indicate she should move, and she marveled that it felt no different to her own. Skin stretched over bone, flesh in the usual places, tiny hairs and tangible lines. They might almost be the same species. Had she ever touched Mani, the journalist guest from long ago during his brief venture to Fairweather Manor? Hard to remember after all these years, but Devon felt she sure hadn't. Your wife is exceptionally healthy, the doctor said to her, hovering madly. Even for one of your kind, very strong. Could be stronger if she took a bit more exercise. One of your kind? He knew what she was. Devon tensed. Don't get hysterical, Madley said, observing her expression with a lazy half smile. John works with the miscreants we employ. He is trusted and discreet. He was sitting on a dresser chair, fiddling with a chunky black mobile. What about the rules? No fraternizing with humans, no working with them. Devon had absorbed all of that early on. What about them? We cannot earn money without taking risks. There's a reason my manor is wealthy while yours languishes on the edge of dead. Besides, your brothers have jobs, don't they? Not much of a different choice. Either we work among humans and hide our nature, or employ a few trusted ones and then don't have to worry about slipping up. I see. No point arguing. It wasn't her business or her manor. You're right, I'm sure. The doctor found a vein, pricked her skin, and began his blood draw. The electric fireplace flickered behind them, devoid of any wood smoke scent. She tried not to hold her breath. How long would those results take? No one in Winterfield had tested her pregnancy like this. They had simply waited for nature, as Gailey had put it. Few hours. I'll let you know the results straight away, of course. Truthfully, though, the blood test is a formality. Librovarian women. Libro... what women? She had never heard the term before. Librovarian is my private medical term for book eaters, John said, removing the needle and fussing with the little vial, full of her black blood. Oh, such a human thing to do, she thought. Humans were always driven to naming things, describing them above and beyond their function. It would never have occurred to her or her kind to invent a name other than book eaters in all its functional, unimaginative glory. Women of your kind are biologically very regular, John said. You are certainly pregnant, is it? It's just a question of how long. Pregnant. Devon had been expecting him to say that all morning, had been expecting it to happen since being packed off to the Easterbrooks, but hearing it spoken aloud still made her breath come short. The mantra. Remember the mantra, she urged herself. Don't care, don't think, shut it all off, only Salem. Is this my last pregnancy? She said, because she'd heard the rumors, heard that some book eater women could carry 3, and that sounded like her idea of hell. I won't have any more? Again, almost certainly, John said, still scribbling. We'll confirm after the birth, but your baby carrying days are at an end. Don't suppose you can tell the sex? I've heard that's a thing that can be done with human technology. Matley crossed and uncrossed his legs. She's had a girl before, you see, and we're hoping for a repeat performance. John rubbed his nose, leaving a smudge of ink on his skin. Possible, but difficult. You'd need access to a hospital ultrasound and a qualified technician. I could help you arrange that, but it'd cost a bit. Never a guarantee either. Scans can be wrong. Hospital full of humans? No, not worth the risk. We'll take the surprise. It's tradition in any case. I must warn you, if she has already had one girl. Yes, I am aware, excruciatingly unlikely she'll produce anything other than a boy. A sound went off in his pocket, Matley's mobile ringing. Excuse me, I'd best take this call. He stepped outside, speaking in a low voice. I should be gone too. John clipped up his briefcase and gave her a cursory nod. Goodbye, Miss Fairweather. I'll attend to you in the coming months, should anything go wrong. Thanks. Devon's thoughts were elsewhere already, thinking of another pregnancy, another labor, another birth. How would she feel holding another soft bundle of scent, tears, and paper-thin flesh in her hands? She broke out in sweat, unable to picture any child's face but Salem's. The mantra, Salem, remember the reasons for enduring. She took out the compass Luton had given her, a cold, hard, tangible reminder. She sat by the window and traced the lines of her daughter's face, preserved in glass and frozen in time. And that's the end of part 16. So on with part 17. I might just make part 17 the last one for today. Oh, it's a short one. Okay, it's a shorter one, so maybe we do 17 and 18, but then we're stopping for today. I really don't think I can do much today for that. I'm so sorry, guys. But we'll definitely still be streaming some other things. We will not end. All right. 17. The princess lets down her hair. The quote, and now she grew thoughtful. She must hoard the splendor. What a little ignorance her gaolers had made of her. Life was a mighty bliss, and they had scraped hers to bare bone. They must not know that she knew. By George MacDonald, The History of Photogen and Nycteris. Devon found her second pregnancy was strangely restful, perhaps because she'd given up entirely. Hope was a thing you lost when simply trying to imagine better days became so exhausting. When simply trying to imagine better days became so exhausting, overwhelming, and depressing a task that one opted for despair out of sheer weariness. Giving up brought peace. At Winterford Manor, Devon had spent much of her pregnancy wandering the grounds aimlessly but happily, always by foot since she'd been barred from riding due to her condition. But Easterbrook lands were riddled with farms and human labor, things that distressed her rather than soothed her, so she stayed indoors. Having little enough to do and few other places to go, she spent a week or so pottering miserably in her room, watching rain clouds pelt the workers and fields alike before finally venturing down to find Jaro again. She entered the games room without knocking and simply said, "I'm here to play," in answer to his puzzled expression. Hello, Jaro said, hitting pause in astonishment. I mean, sure, but isn't it kind of late? I'm pregnant if you haven't heard, she said. I don't have to see Matley in the evening anymore. Congratulations, I think, he said after a minute. He scratched his head. No beer, right? I'm guessing, with the baby and, can I get you some tea? You want to keep playing Final Fantasy? Devon nodded. The happiest 6 months of her life were spent in Jaro's game room, staying up all hours of the night and drinking ink tea and being mostly ignored by the rest of the Easterbrook troupe. She had never been more trapped, yet so free. It's strange, she told him, on one of their many afternoons lost to the worlds of PlayStation and Nintendo. When I thought about my future as a little girl, I could have never imagined any of what I'm living right now, and definitely not this. Her gesture took in the games room, encompassing not just consoles but the unconventional friendship they'd struck up. Tiny Irish Viking, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome in. None of her kind imagines the future, Jaro said, stretching out his legs. We make plans and we predict things, but really it's too difficult to think about life outside the bounds of what we've already experienced. Which is exactly what the future is. Life beyond what we've already experienced. Jesus, Jaro. What? Just... She hit the pause button. You actually listen when I talk to you? And think about responses and say things that are pointful and... It's weird, that's all. Jesus, Dev. What? You're a low bar for friendship, that's all. If it's such a low bar, then how come most people can't meet it? She sounded bitter, even to herself. I guess most people are kind of shy then. Shy enough to make bare minimum basic courtesy layabouts like me look good, eh? Goddamn. I suppose, she added without thinking. I wish it had been you. I could have done all this so much easier if I had a husband I liked, but instead I have Matley. No offense to your brother. A very awkward pause, and then he laughed an unfunny laugh, a vein pulsing in his temple, almost a sob. Did I say something wrong? It would never have been me, that's all. Sorry. Why not? I mean, you're a little bit young, but it doesn't always have to be the older brothers, does it? No, it doesn't. But it never picked me all the same. Not when there's so many other vying for the role. Games music looped endlessly in the background. Press play, the video game screen urged. Neither of them did. I don't understand. Even as she said it, an unexpected memory surfaced. Madly on her first night here, leering from the game's room door. Any other man and I'd be questioning your infidelity. I am questioning your fidelity. No one's told you, have they? Jaro said. Suppose I should tell you before you hear it from somewhere else. It's common enough as a joke in this house. He set down the console controller and picked up the television one, pressing mute to silence the volume. I don't like women. What do you mean? She asked, affronted. You do like me, don't you? We get on. He groaned, dragging a hand through curled hair. No, you're not understanding. I don't like any woman in the way men are supposed to. Oh, do you like men? That's no big concern. Lots of knights and brothers. No, not that either. He plucked invisible dust off the sofa arm. I'm asexual, I think. That was not a word Devon had encountered in her forays into fiction, as she sifted rapidly through her dictionary knowledge. Which one? Huh? His turn to be confused. The word has 4 definitions? Jaro snorted, throwing his head back against the couch. Go on, give me your 4 definitions. Lacking sex or functional sex organs, she reddened a little. That's definitely not the problem. He was laughing, not at all embarrassed. Involving or reproducing by reductive process. Devon said with all the dignity she could muster. That isn't what you mean either, is it? You're not an amoeba or mushroom. Jaro shook his head. Not involved with, or relating to sex devoid of sexuality. She said, and this time he was silent. Devon added, Merriam-Webster also specifies not having sexual feelings toward others, not experience sexual desire or attraction. That's the one. That's what I am. Uninterested in procreation or people in that way men are supposed to be. He finished off his beer, rolling the empty can in between his hands. I've never felt that way for a single person, you know? Never tried to pick up human girls or wanted to get married or... They used to say that I was a deviant. Do you know he has a porn stash? Jaro shook his head. Most of my brothers do. Just not me. Deviant, noun. Someone or something that deviates from a norm. She surprised herself by saying, I'm a deviant too, for what it's worth. He looked up, still rolling the beer can. What do you mean? I like girls. Devon had never said that to anyone before, not even herself. I mean, I think I do. But how do you even know when there aren't any around to be sure? It's just a feeling, from reading about them in books, and the few that I've met in real life. Jaro was quiet for a long moment. Damn, that must make these marriages very hard on you. I don't know any different, do I? It's just my life. Just your life. He crushed the empty can to flatness. Doesn't it bother you? The babies, getting married, all that? The question unsettled her, an echo of what she'd asked Fairdray years ago at the first wedding. Long-lashed Fairdray, pretty and bright and sparkling, with her hand on Devon's thigh as she leaned in for a social kiss. Long-suffering Fairdray, bored and lonely and drinking far too much wine at someone else's wedding. She gave him Fairdray's answer because it seemed fitting. Well, there's not anything else, is there? Can't live with humans, so it's this or nothing. That's not what I asked, he said quietly. Forget about duty, obligation, whether there's better or worse options. Do you, Devon Fairweather, mind being a bride who gives up her children? He pointed at her belly. You're pregnant for the second time. Are you going to mind giving up that child? It isn't so bad. She hated him for asking, for caring. She hated everyone else even more for not asking and not caring. I'm lucky. I have a privileged life. What? He turned toward her in a rare moment of expressiveness, eyes wide and nostrils flared. Dev, you have a daughter. Would you be happy for her to get married like you've done? How are you going to feel when she goes through that in a dozen years' time? Will you still be saying it wasn't bad and telling her she's lucky? For a brief moment, Devon was struck by a vision of 3-year-old Salem, giggling and rolling around in bed while someone pushed her face first into a pillow and hiked up her skirt. Stupid. Because Salem would be much older when she got married. But that still might be her fate, her experience. And why not? It had been Devon's. She had been willing, more or less. But if her daughter was not, what then? The experience would be nightmarish, as Matley was for her. It might be nightmarish even if Salem was willing. I don't have your choices, she said, resentment leaking into her words. We don't all get to say no. I haven't got sisters to shoulder the burden. You're asking me this like I have a say, and it's cruel, Jarrow. Really cruel, because for you, these things are a choice. He flinched. I'm sorry, I didn't. Of course I mind. Christ, I miss my daughter all the time. I can't talk about her, but I can't stop thinking about her either. I hate not having options. I hate how we live, privileged and oppressed, exotic and dull. I try not to think of her getting married. She glared at him. Does that answer your question? Jarrow leaned forward, gripping her hand. What if I could help you have choices? Such as? I've tried running away before, and I don't think I even got 5 miles. You didn't have a plan or resources, he countered. Look, come with me to the back room. I want to show you something. This was a bad idea, but she only had time to kill. All right. She followed after, belly filled with tingling. The games room held a small storage area that he'd outfitted as a kitchenette, a specialist kettle for boiling ink tea, cupboards of graphic novels to snack on. It also held maps. The one Jarrow rested down to spread open covered the kitchenette table completely and flowed over the edges in an ocean of excess paper. Devon had never seen a map before in her life and couldn't stop staring. Is this England? Where are we on it? It's the United Kingdom, which includes England, and we are here. He pointed. Norfolk coast. She touched the spot he pointed to. I had no idea our country was so large. Jarrow burst out laughing. What's so bloody funny? Not your fault. Look. He took down another map from the cupboards and spread it atop the first. That's our country, Dev, compared to the rest of the world. Green-tinted continents shouldered up from matte blue seas, swaths of land and vaster swaths of ocean, landmass after landmass populated with people. And there, at the very top, sat an impossibly small island that she barely recognized the shape of. From the first map, her dinky little country. She'd eaten a fantasy novel once, a lush and alien book full of words that made her dizzy, containing a sketchy map of invented places. At the time, it had seemed vast, but it hadn't been nearly as large and detailed as the real world variety in front of her. "The world is so big," she said, dumbfounded. "How did I ever know? How did I never know?" Because they don't teach girls that manner. They don't teach girls manner. Wait, what? Because they don't teach girls things that matter. Jarrow pushed the maps toward her across the table. "Get eating. It's the fastest way to learn information, and I've got loads of copies." He grinned. "Pardon?" She must have misheard. "Surely eating maps doesn't work." Yes and no. Paper is paper up to a point. I've eaten copies already, and it's worthwhile. I know a lot of place names, have a sense of where they are. It helps. He gestured at graphic novels. Similar to eating those, yeah? And picture books you had as a child. Mostly the words remain, but you still get a feeling for the images. Sort of. A chance to expand her knowledge into something useful and forbidden. Devon unsheathed her book teeth and bit through the folded world map. It tasted of air-conditioned factories and slick, slightly bitter ink. The petrochemical coating sat heavy on her tongue, sticking to the insides of her cheeks. She grimaced. "I brought you some ketchup," he said, a squeezy bottle from one of the shelves. "It's a human condiment, but the acidic content works like a charm on glossy coated paper." No plates in the games room, so Jarrow squeezed ketchup all over the map and rolled it up like a printed tortilla wrap. Devon bit into her map roll. Words formed in her mind, a long list of places. If she concentrated, she could almost picture them laid out, as if someone had scrubbed away the drawing of the landmasses and left the city and country names unchanged, roughly marking out relative locations. Only there were so many countries, and the capital stacked up inside her head, and the glossy paper made her nauseous. The ketchup tasted like an absurdist comedy, but Jarrow was right. It took the edge right off the plastic coating. "Let me show you something," he said when she'd finished. "If you're not too tired of seeing things, that is." "No." Devon licked ketchup off her thumb. "I don't mind at all." She'd have to remember his trick. There were a lot of glossy books in this house. "I'll show you the different families." Jarrow unrolled the first map again and stabbed a finger on the map. This is the Devonport in Poise, Wales." His finger moved upward, sweeping across dotted networks of cities. "Easterbrook's on the Norfolk coast, that's us. More upward, your friendly Fairweathers up in the Yorkshire moors. Back down to the south, the Gladstones in London. Somewhere in the far forested middle regions, the Blackwoods were here, though they've collapsed and dispersed to other houses." My mother was a Blackwood. I wonder where she's living now." "In the south somewhere, probably. A lot of them folded into the Gladstones." His finger moved back out toward the west middle areas. "This is Winterfield and Birmingham, where your daughter is." Devon clenched her fists until her nails cut lines into her palms. "And the Raven Scars are up here on the north coast, even more north than your Fairweather Manor." He tapped the map with a nail. "Do you know about them?" "The ones who make Redemption." "That's the ticket. Until the Raven Scars developed that dragons were just killed or managed by their own families. These days they're allowed to live because they've been useful, but no one trusts them to run their own household, in case they go rogue and draw human attention. That's where the knights come in. Babysitters for the family's unwanted dragons and matchmakers for our weddings." What's that have to do with escape? Nothing directly, since you ask. I actually opened this map to show you Ireland. Both Irelands. He dragged the line across the map to the other side of Britain, pointing at a small cluster of islands. See this? Northern Ireland is in the United Kingdom, but the Republic of Ireland is a whole separate country, with an unguarded border between them. I don't understand. Unguarded border, he said impatiently. Think, Devon. What's the main thing that makes escaping the families difficult? She goggled at him at a loss. They're powerful? Nah, not really. They just pretend they are, he said. It's the fact that we can't easily leave this bloody island because none of us have any proper documentation. Oh, of course. But we can do it if we chain our journey through Northern Ireland, he pressed. We could take a ferry there without needing passports since it's part of the United Kingdom, then drive quietly across the border into the Republic because they don't have border checkpoints between the two. Boom, out of Britain, he grinned. If you want to escape the families, all you have to do is take a ferry to Northern Ireland. She said, doubtful. Aren't there book eaters there? Not anymore. The last of the Irish eaters dispersed in the 1940s. Some went abroad to America, never heard of them again. The rest merged their lineage into the Ravenscroft and the Winterfields. Both Irelands are free of the families. He leaned forward, face aglow with excitement. What do you think? A good idea? She put her head in her hands, overwhelmed by all he was suggesting. Stop, please stop. I'm glad you care. It means a lot to me, but I can't up and go to this Ireland place. Northern Ireland, whatever. I have a daughter, Jarrow. This is no plan we can concoct that will bring me to her because she's trapped in Birmingham. His face fell. She'll be trapped whether you go or stay. If I stay, I'll get to see her when I'm done having children. I have a meeting. It's all set up on her 10th birthday. If I behave, if I do as I'm told and... Listen to yourself, he said, almost a growl. The family have you fooled into thinking life is a fairy tale. There's no happy ending to the story. It is just a con. Don't talk to me like I'm bloody stupid. She kept her voice low, her jaw tight in contrast to his wild gesturing. If I go with you, I would definitely never see Salem again. There's a certainty. Now that's a certainty. She'd be lost to me forever. Staying is my only chance, however slim. Oh, for God's sakes, Dev, there is no chance at all, right? They are never visiting their biological, they're never going to let you see your daughter again. When have you ever heard of mothers visiting their biological children? Why the hell would they make an exception for you? Did your mother ever come to visit? His fist battered the table in sudden fury. Fucking think about it. Do any mothers ever visit? She stared at him with eyes wide and lips parted, a child struck dumb. A memory of Uncle Ike lounging in her bedroom, ankles elegantly crossed as he said so casually, 500 years of Edith's tradition do not get overturned on the whims of one pampered girl. It's bait, he stormed. They're saying this bullshit to keep you quiet until you're old and tired like the aunts and don't have the heart to fight anymore. Can't you see that? Just shut up. She clapped her hands over her ears. I came here to play video games. That's the only escape I'm interested in. The only escape that is possible for me. If you want to leave, you can do that. Go off and don't come back. No children, no responsibilities anchoring you down, but you don't want that, do you? Because this isn't about me or my life. It's about you and your need to rescue someone. Jarl folded into her chair as if she had silenced his tendons. A slice of tendons. Silence cowered between them. I'm sorry, she said. And when that didn't seem enough, she added, if you no longer want me to come here, I'll understand. Don't be daft, he said after a moment. You're always welcome to play games or anything else. Always. He reached out and scraped the map off the table, stashing it into a drawer. If you ever change your mind, let me know. I'm serious. What that offer cost him, she couldn't begin to guess. Even in her distress, she was grateful. I'll think about it. She lied and turned away from the maps that were too real of an escape. Back toward the safe prison of the games room and its promise of digital abandon. All right, that's the end of part 17. We're gonna do part 18 and then we'll switch to something else. Probably Genshin. All right. Part 18 is called The Many Faces of Devon Fairweather. We're back in present day. The quote for this one being, the book eater inability to write by longhand in any form, including codes or pictographs, is truly fascinating. They cannot even type electronically. I am reminded of situational mutism, such as that experienced by some autistic individuals or other people with anxiety, where someone may have healthy vocal cords or academic knowledge of human language, yet still be unable to communicate verbally. I believe book eaters experience a similar communication processing barrier. Any action the brain categorizes as written communication becomes psychologically impossible for them to perform. The fact that mind eaters can do it easily must surely to them seem a cruel irony. By Amarenda Patel, Paper and Flesh, A Secret History. Devon dreamed again of hell with that same sense of absurdist comedy. Instead of a pit opening up, she found herself riding a train whose destination was heaven, although no one wanted to take her ticket. Kai sat next to her, Hester in the seat across. Both were keen to see what heaven looked like, but Devon knew better. Heaven was a lie. They needed to jump off the train and into the fields of fiery death outside. She flung herself from a ghostly train, but her companions did not jump with her, only watched from the doorway with sad faces. Devon crashed into a pit of fire and kept going. She fell through level after level after level of molten heat, deeper and darker and hotter, until finally she landed on a rustic sofa in a self-catering B&B cottage. Devon snapped awake, sitting up so fast her head spun. She'd rolled off the sofa in her sleep, hitting the floor with a thump. Her head ached. Light streamed through the cheap lace curtains, making her squint. Kai wasn't anywhere to be seen, but a pile of his clothes sat outside the bathroom door, which was shut, and the sound of running water came from within. Merry Christmas, sleepyhead. You're the last one up. Hester sat on the edge of her bed with legs crossed, dressed, alert, and looking far less stressed than the night before. What? What's... Devon groaned a yawn. Time is it? Morning sunlight washed out her black clothes to an unhealthy gray. The carpet beneath her face smelled like mothballs. Almost 8 a.m. Hester gestured at the room's little television, which was turned on with a low volume. Look, we're famous. On the flickering screen, a whale-coiffed news anchor was speaking.
We have urgent news of a shooting incident in Newcastle Central Station on Christmas Eve, followed by an aggravated series of assaults in the Edinburgh line. No casualties reported, but the police would urgently like to speak to a man and a woman, believed to be traveling together toward Edinburgh. They are also in search of a train conductor who is accused of attacking passengers before disappearing. More information as it comes in. Reports say the man is roughly 6 feet in height, dressed in black with fair skin and dark hair. The woman is around 5 feet tall, wearing a patterned blouse and long skirt. No casualties, huh? Devon said, swallowing a second yawn. Just inexplicable piles of ink-stained paper moldering on the ground. She thought of Ramsey, wearing that train conductor uniform. There was only one explanation for how he'd gotten it. She wondered if the real train conductor would turn up alive, and what he would have said, what he would have to say about the man who attacked him, if so. Being on the news is bad, Hester said. We might run into trouble if our hosts think that description is awfully familiar. All the more reason to get out of here. I feel better if I knew exactly what I'm walking onto next, Devon said. How's this going to work? Did I just rock up and introduce myself to your siblings? Hester got up and started shaking dried mud from her shoes. I'll bring you to Killock and you'll have to chat with him. He's very charming. Fair enough. Devon thought of Hester's confession from the night before. Sometimes he frightens me. We still need a way of getting out. We still need a way of getting there. 2 steps ahead of you. I've already been down to the reception this morning to ask around. Don't look so anxious. We don't match those daft police descriptions on the television. Anyway, no dealerships that she knew of, but the farm itself has an old hatchback they've been trying to get rid of for several months. I reckon we could take it for a test drive and not come back. Or we can just buy it. Devon raked her fingers through her hair to unknot the tangles. And we should. If they're not already suspicious of us, they absolutely will be if we steal a vehicle. Attention from Ramsey was one thing. Attention from human police was quite another. Buy it, Esther said, voice rattled. How much money do you have, precisely? The water switched off. Thumping noises from Kai clamoring around in the bath. He would be out soon. Devon snagged a nail in her hair. Tell me where we're going precisely, and I'll tell you how much money I have precisely. Esther flared slim nostrils. Even if you take a scenic route to avoid towns, 80 miles isn't exactly a journey to the center of the earth. We'll be there this afternoon. What are you afraid of? I'll betray you before you get me somewhere secure? It's not that simple. Killock insists on secrecy. He asked me to keep you in the dark as much as possible. Devon abandoned her hair to its tangles. Let me get this straight. Everyone has to do what he says and live under this rule. You're sometimes afraid of him, and he's also paranoid. Remind me again how we're supposedly different from the other patriarchs. How he's supposedly different from the other patriarchs. That's not... Hester picked at a thumbnail, lips pinching. Dev? Kai stuck his head around the door. I don't have a towel. For heaven's sake. Devon scooped one off the floor and tossed it at him, trying to not to show how rattled she felt. Take it in with you next time. He huffed at her and shut the door again. That odd mix of overly content 5-year-old who could manage his own shower but also never remembered to bring his towels or clean clothes. The sight of him, however, was a sharp reminder of her priorities. She needed these folks to trust her, or Kai would never be okay again, and Devon would never be free of Ramsey. Perhaps she ought to yield, just a little, just this once. She turned back to her very amused-looking Hester and said, about 20 grand. The other woman's smile faltered. Come again? I took 26,370 pounds from Matley Easterbrook's vault. There was more, but the rest didn't fit in my backpack. Devon picked up her jacket from the couch, shook it out, and stuffed her arms into her sleeves. I've got about 20,000 pounds left, I think. Need to sit and count it out. Plenty for a cheap old car. You broke into the Easterbrook vault? Didn't Killock take his father's accounts? Devon said, sidestepping the question. This is no different. Killock had years to plan and all of us helping, Hester said, especially evasive. Equally evasive. You were one woman alone. What are we doing this morning? Kai wandered out of the bathroom looking clean. Cleaner than he had in a long while, but also moving a little slower, and the bright energy he'd carried yesterday seemed faded. We're about to buy a car, Devon informed him. Want to do your starving orphan act? Should knock off a piece of the price. Not an act, he said mournfully. I'm really hungry. A week ago, those words would have twisted her gut. Today, Devon could smile apologetically and say, hang in there, love, just a few more hours. She counted out 500 pounds in 20-pound notes and handed them across to Hester. Here. You and he should be the ones to do the purchase. I don't have shoes and I look dodgy as hell. I mean, sure, if you trust me to. We'll never finish this trip if we don't start trusting each other. She handed the money over in a thick wad. Right. Hester took the proffered money and cleared her throat. Innerleithen. Pardon? You wanted to know, right? I'm letting you know. Hester folded the money with deliberate care and tucked it into a pocket. We're going to Traquair House on the outskirts of Innerleithen. It's a couple of hours drive from here. Never been there, never heard of it, Devon said, nonplussed. But I appreciate the trust. Thanks for telling me, even if I don't have a bloody clue where it is. Well, like you said, the success of our journey requires mutual reliance, Hester said, sounding embarrassed. Informing you of the destination is a small enough gesture. You'd have needed to tell me in the next couple of hours anyway. Devon picked up the television remote and unmuted the news channel. Come grab me when you've got the car, eh? I want to see if there are any updates about us in the meantime. It's a plan. Hester unlocked the door and held her hand out to Kai. All right, young man, you get to be my accomplice. Devon sat patiently on the edge of the bed until they disappeared, keeping her eyes on the screen. When the door clicked shut after Hester and Kai, she got up, drew the bolt as a precaution, and rang Ramsey on her mobile. He answered on the first ring. Tell me this is good news. Innerleithen, she said, a little breathless. We're going to a place called Traquair House in Innerleithen. It's a town in the border counties. I know it. Pause. Innerleithen of all places. Why there, I wonder? How should I know? She said, exasperated. Maybe it was the first place they could find? Anyway, I need a few days to settle in once we get there. Fine. I need a little time myself to organize things on this end. He sounded serene. He sounded serene, cheerful, almost pleasant, like boy Ramsey had been during his best moods. Let's set a date. December 26th at 2300 hours. Send a confirmation text once you're there, and keep your phone if you can. We can track it. That's tomorrow evening, she said dazedly, counting up in her head. Barely 36 hours. Are you sure? What the fuck wouldn't I be sure? He snarled, roused to sudden ire. It's not a problem, is it? You're not on goddamn holiday, Dev. No, of course not. A brutally tight window, but it would have to do. It's fine, I was just surprised. Is there anything else? Don't fuck up. Don't try anything stupid. Look out for the knight I'm sending your way. See you in a day and a half. The line went dead. Devon watched the call disconnect and wondered how Ramsey had fared last night, stranded on the train with his superiors breathing down his neck. How he'd explained the dead bodies and everything else that had gone wrong with the knight's actions. She suspected with a kind of grudging admiration that he'd not encountered any trouble. He was a tough person in his own spiteful little way. The toughness made him blind, though. Ramsey thought himself so strong and so frightening that no one would dare to get in his way. And thought of her as so desperate and so shaped by circumstance that she wouldn't have a path around his enforced treachery, spiraling plans. The only intelligence he ever acknowledged was with which mirrored his own. Ramsey believed his strength came from his own cruelty, and so could not recognize such qualities in other people, including her. So much the better. If Devon wanted to enact her own plans, she simply had to take advantage of Ramsey's blindness. She cricked her neck, brought up her recent contacts, and pressed the call button again, but this time for a different number. One she called yesterday evening before leaving the flat with Hester and Kai. 3 rings, followed by a cautious silence. Nycteris follows the firefly, she said, because there was no need for Morse code at the moment. It's me. Which, like herself, was seeking the way out, came the answer. And Jarrow Easterbrook sighed theatrically. It still gives me a heart attack every time you ring, you know? I'm losing years of my life over here. She couldn't help but smile, but he never changed, not in the ways that mattered. It's good to hear from you. Devon crushed a handset against her ear. Things are moving, and very quickly. Can you pick me up from Trackware House in Inner Leyden? When are we talking? How quick is quick? She grimaced. Tomorrow, apparently, although I'm not sure exactly when we're leaving. Jesus, Dev, 1 day's notice? Really? You've had months to prepare, she protested. Okay, fine, it's not fair, but it's all I've got. Ramsey is going full throttle. Fuck me. Is that a no? She said, iced with sudden anxiety. A rustling noise, paper being rifled. Are you there? She said. I don't have much time. It's enough time. I can do it, he said. Listen, at the juncture where the Leyden Water tributary meets the River Tweed, you will find a trio of riverine islands. Meet me there tomorrow morning. A trio of what now? Damn, his romanticism, she thought with annoyance. Okay, yeah, we really need to stop after this. I'm also just like struggling to fucking read. Okay. Can't we just meet in town? Fuck, someone's coming, gotta go. He hung up. Devon clutched the disconnected receiver, vacillating between relief and anxiety. So much to juggle, so many spinning plates. Focus on the goal, she thought. Chest squeezing. Focus on the goals, not the obstacles. On the needs, not the fears. 2 days. Only 2 days. Devon stood, scooped up her bag, and went to catch up with her other 2 companions. The car would be ready by now. The inside of the little gray Ford smelled like the outside of a farm. A few miles in, and Devon felt compelled to roll down the window and hang her head out. The balm of snow and woodland soothed her offended nose. In the driver's seat next to her, Hester hummed as she steered them toward the twisting country road, avoiding the motorway. She had insisted on driving, since she had shoes and knew where they were going. Fine by Devon. Haggling had been straightforward enough, and if the farm owners found it odd that Hester paid in cash, they hadn't complained. Likewise, neither Devon nor Hester complained when they charged far more than the car was worth, as with the room last night. Money solved a host of quibbles. As they pulled away, she'd glanced in the rearview mirror. The farm owners were staring at them with hands on hips, heads leaned together. Devon had wondered briefly if the pair would end up filing a police tip-off, then decided she didn't really care. The miles drifted by, and Devon leaned her head against the rest, oddly tired despite a good night's sleep. Too much cumulative exhaustion. She was just starting to doze off when Kai's voice jerked her to wakefulness. Did you hear that? He peered through the back passenger window, craning his neck. Sounds like a motorcycle coming down the road. Devon sat up, instantly alert. Where? Which direction? Hester said. Are you sure? Ahead of us, he pointed. Hester hit the brakes abruptly, throwing all three of them against their seatbelts, and stuck her head out of the window to listen. Devon also peered out. The narrow country road lay empty, crouched between grayish-green fields and speckled with sheep. And cutting through that domestic silence was an unmistakable burr of a bike engine, too far to be seen yet on a twisting road. From the front, she said, coming toward us. Hester revved the car back into motion. The two of you duck down and he likely will just pass by. Hurry. Kai hunkered down, eyes squeezed shut. The speck blossomed into a lumpy squidge of black, growing bigger as the two vehicles streamed toward each other. The night was clearly visible on his black bike, ironically helmetless, smart suit obscured by an expensive bomber jacket. One of Ramsey's nights out scouting for them. Here to have a flashy car chase, just as she'd requested. His voice floated up from her memory. Keep this one alive, please. I'm tired of cleaning up the bodies of my men, and nights are not infinitely expendable. Fuck that. Every night she could kill in advance improved her chances of getting out of this mess alive, and even better if it made her look good in Ravenscar eyes. What are you doing? Hester hissed, eyes on the road. Duck down! No. Devon lunged across and wrenched the wheel to the right, ramming the Knight at 60 miles an hour with the little gray Ford. Bike hit car at a skewed angle with brassy clang. Hester swore and stomped the brakes. Devon bruised her chest against the right restraints of the seatbelt, guts slamming against her ribs. The Knight cascaded up and over the windshield like in a tornado of limbs before landing on the ground near the passenger side. A single moment of stunned stillness, and then he rolled over, trying to crawl away. Black blood streamed from his nostrils, from a ruined eye socket. One of his legs bent in the wrong direction, and he could only crawl a few inches. Devon unclipped her seatbelt and swung the car door open with all her strength. Door met Knightley's head with a dull clunk. It was one blow too many. He flopped back to the tarmac, stunned into unconsciousness. A flustered shout from Hester as Devon vaulted from the fort, still barefoot like she had been in the forest all those years ago, running and hunted. For a moment she stood above the prone Knight, spasmodic indecision holding her in place. Her, much like the secondhand clothes she wore, never quite felt comfortable. But she still remembered all too clearly the fear and horror of that first escape attempt. If the patriarchs had required her death, the Knights would have delivered without a backward glance. Besides, the only good Knight was a dead Knight. Necks were hard to break, so Devon took the easy option and, prying the knife out from his belt, spiked his blade through the left intercostal space straight to the heart. He never regained consciousness. 30 seconds of stillness as winter sunlight slowly warmed the frost-limed road and the Knight bled out inside his own chest cavity. And she stepped back, breathing through her nose. At last, we meet the woman who killed Madly Easterbrook. Hester leaned against the car. I was beginning to wonder when you'd show yourself. What about you? Devon said. When will you show yourself? The night was already decaying, skin grown thin and brittle and pale like parchment as his veins dried up. Lines of inky blood traced uneven patterns across the exposed flesh. I won't lose sleep over one dead night, Hester said, ignoring the question pointedly. But for the record, I do not appreciate you snatching the wheel. That could have gone diabolically wrong. Sorry, split-second decision. It wasn't fair of me. I could have just driven past him. I'm not sure this was worth this fuss. We're still an hour from the border. He might have alerted the others. You don't think this murder would alert them? No, if they don't find the evidence. Not if they don't find the evidence. Devon picked up the clothes, shaking out the ink-damp mess of paper. I'll hide the suit on motorbike. They'll notice he's missing eventually, but by then, we'll be out of their reach. Hester duly obliged. Devon dumped an armful of stained fabric into a ditch by the side of the road. Picking up the bike with both hands, she flung it into the hedge. A heavy thing to toss, though fun to watch it go flying. Kai, meanwhile, observed them from the back with an expression Devon couldn't read. She met his gaze briefly, held it for a few seconds before turning away. He'd seen worse. What was one more murder in his presence? Inwardly, she was already rehearsing excuses to Ramsey. I couldn't stop her. She was the one driving because the family never let me learn that skill, and also because only Hester knew our end location. Of course, this was assuming he even asked, because he wouldn't have the chance if she had her way. By the time he thought so to suspect anything, Devon planned to be gone, long gone. The idea that she might never see her brother again gave her a sudden kick of endorphins and she almost smiled. Hester sank back into the driver's side. I suppose we're lucky Mr. Flying Knight here didn't crack the windshield. I'm always lucky, Devon said, clipping in her seatbelt. This is what luck feels like. You're bloody weird, you know that? God almighty. You'll just get to Innerladen. Hester put the car into gear and drove off, leaving the empty road well behind. None of them looked back. And that's the end of part 18 and our end for today with the book. I didn't expect it to actually get this brutal now. Like, we've had some somewhat brutal scenes before in some like fights, but like, god damn. This is getting more and more. I mean, I'm definitely not complaining. It's actually getting really, really interesting. I still absolutely do not agree with the values of their families and how they're treating the women in there and everything else and how they handle tradition. But I'm rooting for Devon. I hope she gets her way. I really hope she can get out of there. Even though her means are also very questionable. But understandable in, you know, when you're in a desperate situation like that, you're basically trying to do anything you can to get out. So I'm looking forward to finishing this. I'm rooting for the characters, for Devon, for Kai, that they're getting their piece. And we'll see how that continues. Hopefully next week I'll be in a bit of a better headspace and we can actually do more than that. But for now, we're done with this, and we'll move on to some Genshin. I think we're gonna be doing Genshin today. So let me just more Genshin, baby.
story. Impact. All right, I gotta quickly plug my capture card in and everything. Yeah. You chat, come over here on this monitor. We can close this out, and then we got, oops. I'll put you guys over here. Do 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 do. There, and we'll open that, and then let me switch over here. Bam. There we go. Still got a bunch of things I need to do here. I might also try another run on theater, because I still need that last star for the elixir. But we shall see. For now, I gotta be right back, and then it's Genshin time.